The rain drummed against the corrugated metal sheets that Emma had carefully arranged into a makeshift shelter in the abandoned alley behind the Galactic Commerce District. Her pale blue skin glistened with moisture, and her elongated fingers, each bearing an extra joint that marked her as Zephyrian, trembled as she clutched the leather wallet she had found. Emma stared at the identification card visible through the transparent window. Ambassador Jackson Matthews, Human Diplomatic Corps. The photograph showed a middle-aged man with kind eyes and graying temples, wearing the formal Navy uniform of Earth's representatives. 3 cycles had passed since Emma's family had died in the mining accident on Zephyr Prime. 3 cycles since the insurance company had declared their deaths an act of celestial mechanics and denied her any compensation. 3 cycles since she had sold everything she owned just to buy passage to the neutral station of Haven Prime, hoping to find work among the dozens of species that called it home. Instead, she had found only prejudice. The Thoraxians considered Zephyrians too fragile for manual labor. The crystalline collective found their emotional nature distasteful. Even the usually tolerant Verdant Union had turned her away, claiming their photosynthetic operations had no place for a nocturnal species. Now, holding this wallet containing more credits than she had seen in months, Emma faced a choice that could change everything. The identification showed Ambassador Matthews lived in the prestigious diplomatic quarter, a gleaming section of the station where representatives from dozens of worlds conducted the delicate business of interstellar relations. Emma had never set foot there. Security algorithms would have flagged her biometric signature immediately and ejected her as an undesirable. But she knew what she had to do. The journey across the station took 3 hours, during which Emma carefully avoided the main thoroughfares. She knew the service tunnels and maintenance shafts better than most, having learned to navigate them during her months of scavenging. When she finally emerged near the diplomatic quarter, the contrast was jarring. Gone were the flickering neon signs advertising cheap protein paste and recycled oxygen. Here, holographic displays showed art from 1,000 worlds, and the air itself smelled of exotic flowers from the gardens of New Kepler. Security drones immediately locked onto her position. "Halt! Present identification for sector verification." Emma raised her hands, the wallet clearly visible. "I'm returning lost property to Ambassador Matthews, Human Diplomatic Corps." The drone scanned the wallet, then her, then the wallet again. After a moment that felt like eternity, it spoke. "Proceed to Embassy Row, Section 7. You will be escorted." The escort turned out to be 2 more drones and a stern-looking Andromedan security officer whose scales shifted color with suspicion. They led her through corridors lined with the flags and symbols of dozens of civilizations, past meeting rooms where the fate of star systems were decided with handshakes and contracts. The human embassy was surprisingly modest compared to some of the others. No floating crystals or gravity-defying architecture. Just clean lines, warm lighting, and something that smelled remarkably like the coffee beans Emma remembered from her grandmother's stories about old Earth. Ambassador Jackson Matthews was exactly as his photograph suggested. Kind eyes, graying temples, and a face that had clearly weathered years of difficult negotiations. When the security officer explained the situation, those eyes widened in surprise. "You came all the way from the lower districts to return my wallet?" he asked Emma directly, dismissing the guards with a gesture. Emma nodded, offering the leather billfold. It contained significant credits and important identification. "I thought you might need it." Jackson took the wallet, checking its contents briefly before setting it aside. "Everything's here, even the emergency credits." He studied Emma's face carefully. "When did you last eat?" The question caught Emma off guard. That's not important, Ambassador. I just wanted to return your property." "It is important," Jackson said firmly. "To me." He activated his desk communicator.
"Sarah, could you bring some food to my office?"
"Something suitable for Zephyrian dietary requirements." He looked back at Emma. "Sit, please." What followed was the most surreal hour of Emma's life. Ambassador Matthews, Jackson as he insisted she call him, listened as she reluctantly shared her story. He asked thoughtful questions about Zephyrian culture, about the mining accident, about her journey to Haven Prime. His aide brought not just food, but clothing that actually fit Emma's unusual proportions. "Here's what's going to happen," Jackson said finally. "The human embassy has an opening for a cultural liaison position. Someone who can help us understand the challenges faced by displaced persons from the outer colonies. The pay is sufficient for housing in the mid-district, full medical coverage, and educational benefits. Emma stared at him. I don't understand. Why would you? Because, Jackson interrupted gently. Returning that wallet told me everything I need to know about your character. In my experience, integrity is the rarest commodity in the galaxy, much rarer than credits, he smiled. Besides, humanity has a saying. We judge a civilization not by how it treats its most powerful, but by how it treats its most vulnerable. You've been treated poorly by this station. It's time someone changed that. 3 months later, Emma stood in the same corridor where she had once been escorted by suspicious guards. This time she wore the deep blue uniform of the Human Diplomatic Corps, with a badge identifying her as Cultural Liaison for Displaced Persons. Her first initiative, a joint program between human and alien social services, had already helped dozens of refugees find meaningful work. The other ambassadors had been skeptical at first. The Thoraxians questioned Jackson's judgment in hiring a vagrant from the streets. The Crystalline Collective suggested it was mere human sentimentality. But when Emma successfully mediated a dispute between Zephyrian refugees and Verdant Union authorities, something their own diplomats had failed to do for weeks, the criticism quieted. When her cultural insights prevented a major misunderstanding between human colonists and indigenous Centaurian tribes, it disappeared entirely. At the quarterly diplomatic reception, Ambassador Jackson found Emma standing on the observation deck, watching ships arrive from across the galaxy. Any regrets? He asked. Emma touched the badge on her uniform, thinking of all the displaced persons who now had someone who understood their struggles. Only that I waited so long to return your wallet. I could have eaten for a week on those credits. Jackson laughed. You know, Emma, when I first came to Haven Prime, my predecessor told me something. The measure of a diplomat isn't in the treaties they sign, but in the lives they change. I thought I understood what he meant. He gestured toward the bustling concourse below, where Emma's programs had created new opportunities for dozens of species. I was wrong. It took a hungry Zephyrian girl to teach me what diplomacy really means. As they watched the stars wheel overhead, Emma reflected on the strange turns that life could take. A lost wallet, a choice to do what was right rather than what was easy, and a human diplomat who understood that sometimes the greatest negotiations happen not in boardrooms, but in the simple act of seeing someone's worth. The galaxy was vast and often cruel, but in small acts of kindness between strangers something magnificent could bloom. That, Emma had learned, was the most human thing of all.